I think this is really one of the fascinating stories of our industry over the last decade. Obviously, as always, the ultimate driver is consumer preference, what consumers want to know and want to believe about the metal that they're using in their phones or their cars or their beverage cans. But then we've seen that begin to take root. We've seen that come through, for example, the OECD due diligence guidance on responsible sourcing, which is the OECD as a multilateral body reflecting the demands from the citizens of its countries. And then on the other side, we've seen direct rulemaking, for example, by the European Union in the form of the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So you have this combination of consumer pressure, of multilateral work, and direct rulemaking by national, supranational governments, which means that you now end up with a world where there's a lot more focus on the responsible sourcing of metals. So, at the LME, we've had this privilege of over 140 years of, in many ways, setting the standards because we determine which metal can be delivered against LME contracts. And for 138 years of that, it's been about purely the metallurgical quality of what's delivered on the exchange. What we've started to do, and actually came into full effect earlier in 2024, is to also apply a responsible sourcing standard. So we're now saying that if you want to deliver metal on the LME, then it needs to not just be of sufficient chemical quality. So I think the responsible sourcing of metals is one of the fascinating stories of the last decade of our industry. And ultimately, that pressure, like all pressure, comes from end consumers, people who say that they want to know about the ethical quality of the metal that's used in their phone or in their automobile or in their drinks can. But what we've seen over the past few years is that pressure has begun to aggregate and to formulate through routes such as the OECD, who have introduced their due diligence guidance for the responsible sourcing of metals, and also through, for example, the European Union with the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, looking at the carbon content of, in this case, aluminium. So I think it's been this incredible development of consumer pressure coming through into the national and the supranational organizations, and now meaning that our industry is in the midst of this fascinating and I think really positive transition towards a more sustainable future. So at the LME, we've had the privilege for over 140 years of being the center of global metals trading. And one of the big parts of that is that we, as it were, set the standard for the metal which can be delivered on our exchange. And for the vast majority of those years, that standard has just been a metallurgical one. We've said that as long as your metal is of sufficient chemical quality, you're welcome to deliver it on the exchange. In the past few years, and really starting officially from the beginning of 2024, we've said, in addition, the metal needs to be of sufficient ethical quality in the sense of meeting the responsible sourcing requirements. And this, although it's been a quiet revolution, has been an absolute revolution in terms of, for the first time, embedding that responsible sourcing standards into the LME's requirements, and hence by extension into all of the contracts that reference LME prices or the trades that happen on the market behind me. So I think it's been a really important journey for the LME, and it's one where we hope that we can really help the industry in its transition. So I believe that technology is very much the enabler of the transparency that then enables sustainability. So just to give one example, we've invested a lot in a new system here at the LME called LME Passport. And what LME Passport allows us to do is to track both the metallurgical and sustainability credentials of every ton of metal that's traded and delivered on the exchange here. And so so by investing in that platform and making that available to the whole industry, you can now log on to LME Passport, you can look at producer sustainability credentials, you can look at a particular physical piece of metal that you have been delivered, type in its heat number and go and get its credentials. And we think that that is really important in supporting the industry's transformation journey, because it means that the many producers who are doing the right thing, who are making their processes and their products more sustainable, can take credit for that fact and can demonstrate that on the LME Passport disclosure system. So I think sustainability and tracking is really a win-win, because not only does the consumer know what they are buying, but producers and those who are financing new production have more certainty that they will be able to have a sellable product going forwards, and perhaps even get a premium price for the fact that their production is particularly sustainable. So at the heart of that is that traceability. And I think here we should recognize the huge amount of work that's been done by industry bodies. So for example, Coppermark, looking at the copper supply chain, and then allowing producers, be they existing producers or new producers, to get that certification for what they are doing, to give confidence to their downstream customers that the production is of a sufficiently sustainable nature, working, for example, with the LME to disclose that on LME Passport, and ultimately bringing that sustainable product to market. So I think sustainability actually unlocks a huge amount of investment, particularly in newer mining jurisdictions, because it gives the people who are committing that funding and committing that effort a visible path that they'll be getting a fair price for metal which has been sustainably produced. Well, firstly, this will be my third FMF, and I always love going, not just because the weather in Riyadh in January is much nicer than here in London, but because it has become and continues to grow into, I think, a premier global metals event, and it's one of the most productive weeks of my calendar, and I know many other people in the industry feel the same way. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to network with governments, with producers, with consumers, with traders. There's so many people there, and just to get out this message that what the LME wants to do is to support the industry, sustainability being a great example, right? We're not here telling the industry what they should do. We're understanding the journey the industry is going on towards sustainable production and supporting that through disclosure, through responsible sourcing requirements on our market, and a number of other initiatives. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in January.